Well, good morning. My name's Timmian. I am not an expert by any means, but I do have just a long history of my own kind of wanting to be prepared. I am a mother to a whole bunch of kids and have always just been somebody who has honestly a lot of anxiety. So I like to have a lot of plans in place. It's one of my coping mechanisms, but I find it to be a really positive one in this kind of arena. So I work with nonprofits. So on the day to day, this is definitely not my day job, but I have worked with emergency preparedness nonprofits in the past. So the difference, I think, between urban preparedness and a lot of the emergency preparedness programs that are out there is they're geared a little bit more. These kinds of situations are geared more towards people who have a lot of land or a lot of property and being able to put together like giant stores or having lots of yes, and systems in place. So like you could have solar systems and things like that, which you aren't always able to have in an urban setting. So we're going to talk about some of the things that are a little bit different for an urban setting versus a more rural setting like this one. And if you guys have questions, feel free to interrupt me. This really doesn't have to be a one-sided presentation. So as I said, urban settings are a little bit different, including the risks associated. So, so infrastructure-wise, when you're in a more urban setting, you depend a lot on those systems that are in place in an urban setting. So water systems, electricity, public transportation, all those pieces can get disrupted pretty easily in an emergency situation. And so our dependency on those creates a risk that not other, like I said, more rural people can deal with. The population density challenge is also if there's a major earthquake, then they're talking about a lot of people who are trying to get out of the city or need supplies, things like that. And then one of the things that I worry about in that kind of situation too is even if I'm prepared, I think the most average people are not prepared for that kind of emergency. So even if you're prepared, you've got all these people around you who are not necessarily prepared. So you have to take into account how much you can help people versus how much you need to kind of protect yourself and your supplies or family. The potential risk in an urban environment can vary greatly. For our area, we're in the Olympia area. So for us, a big risk is actually like an earthquake. We don't have to worry about tornadoes or hurricanes, but earthquake is one of the ones that I prepare for the most. And then also things like civil unrest, whether we've had lots of fun protests in the Capitol. So those are our bigger risks. We've got some pretty large homeless encampments like near my office. So another piece to think about. And then, so key takeaway for this piece is just to think about in your area what those risks might be, because each one will be different for different areas. Spokane doesn't need to worry so much about a major earthquake. I mean, that can happen, but probably not nearly as badly as in the Seattle area. So the mindset of preparedness being proactive versus reactive. So a lot of the things that I do are run through different scenarios that could happen and think about what I need to be prepared for each of those scenarios. So again, earthquake, it's a big one for me. So I'm always thinking about how much water we have, how much food we have, and what we would use for shelter, what would happen to our house, things like that. But again, it varies greatly on where you're at. Then you want to think about what are the things that are most likely to happen in your area, like I was just talking about, and then where are your weak spots? So for me, water's a big one. It is, as you saw from the picture, there's a lot of us at the house. That's a lot of water to have to worry about having. And that's for me, my weak spot. I've got several things in place. For example, I use pouches of water for the cars because even if they freeze, they don't explode like the water bottles do. But And then I have life straws as a backup to those. And then I've got water. I do have water stored in bottles all around our property. And then building community resilience, one of the challenges, but also can be a plus, is in an urban environment, putting together a network of people. So people who are like-minded. No, it's okay. Thank you. Yeah, it's a nice small group. So, but thanks, Ben. So not only can it be a downside to having more people around you, it can also be a really positive experience as well. So like Tracy and Rob, they live near us and they have different skills than I have. So by having multiple people that we know of, we have a circle of people that we can all come together if something substantial were to happen. So emergency kits for urban preparedness are a little bit different. Again, space requirements make things a little more challenging. That's the kind of helmet I need. So again, essentials are all the same: food and water, first aid supplies, medication, hygiene products. Would you do me a favor and grab that first aid kit?
Yep.
So this is where you have to be a little more creative if you don't have a whole bunch of space in an urban setting. So I like to use under my bed for a lot of the things because I know that I can get to that most likely. A good first aid kit is crucial, in my opinion. This is one of the things you don't skimp on.
You've already had to use it once.
Here, yeah. This one is my absolute favorite, and I will give full credit to Andy. He bought this one, but it has...
I only said that because I was walking up.
It has all sorts of pouches inside that you can take out, and they're labeled. So like this one is the burn mod. So if somebody gets burned, it's really easy to find what you need in this kit. I would take time to familiarize with a kit like this because there's so much. One of the other reasons we did go with this one is because it has, I think it's right over here. It's upside down, so it feels funky. It has the pet med pack too. And you can get all of these separate from this place. So like we had to doctor up Tracy earlier this trip. And so I know which mods I need to refill. And they're really, really well labeled what all the things are. So these are like little stitches that you can do. Really, really highly recommend this one. It's not cheap, but it is definitely worth the money. And to refill the little spots, there's even QR codes on the back. So hopefully you know how to use all the things before. These ones, for her, we only did a Band-Aid. She wasn't that bad, but it was getting infected. It was nasty. She gouged herself on a fiberglass pole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hazards of setting up tents.
Then medication is another big piece. I find that this one's tricky because they say to have medication on, a month's worth of medication with you or, in your kits. But I find the insurance companies don't like you to buy extra medication at a time. So the trick that I've used is I get, as soon as I'm eligible for a refill, I do it and stay super on top of it. So I've been hoarding all the extras. And so now I have a month's worth. It's taken me several months to get here, but I have enough medication to last me a month. And I'll keep stockpiling that. Flashlights, batteries, portable phone chargers, all those things that a lot of people just have now. I did bring my EcoFlow to keep my laptop going. I love this for emergency power. We use it all the time camping and when we're overlanding. You can charge it multiple ways. You can plug it into the house. It has ports on the back to plug it into. This one goes into your cigarette lighter in your car and can charge while you're using it. So it holds its charge for a very long time. I've been really, really happy with this one. Definitely worth the money. We use it all the time. Urban specific considerations, some people have like the solar panel arrays, right? Things like that. It makes it a little more challenging in an urban environment to have something like that, particularly if you are in an apartment or a small home. So focusing on purchasing things that can be compact or can collapse. Those are the most handy, and you get more bang for your space buck, right? Other things to make sure that you have cash. I can't emphasize that one enough. In this day and age, people rarely have cash on them, but having a stash of cash, it will be imperative if there was a major emergency and people aren't taking credit cards. So I now keep several $100s in my safe, and I keep a couple hundred on me. Not at this moment. Don't feel like you should jump me. You won't find any cash right at this moment, but we carry a couple. Yeah. And then transit maps and copies of your ID. You should have all of those pieces as well if you use transit on a daily basis, which is not most people anymore. But the people who depend on transit should make sure that they have those schedules, because I do know a lot of the transit agencies have made it a really high priority to still run their routes, even in an emergency, so that those people who depend on it can still use it. And then last, a go bag versus a stay in place kit. I do both to a degree. I have go bags. They're not in bags, but go kits in my vehicles. And then I also have a big stash at home for staying in place. Your go bag can really do some double duty, but having that extra stay in place kit is really important as well. Communication and information. As I said, if there was a major thing, cell phones probably wouldn't work. So having alternate methods of communication. First of all, the weather alert radio. I don't have the one I'm supposed to have. One of my children was very, very helpful in cleaning out the truck and cleaned out my weather alert radio that I keep in the truck. But I have one that stays in the truck because we do so much traveling out in the woods, and you would not get a notification on your cell phone that there was a weather alert, but the radio does get it. And then I have a radio that sits at home on the desk for the same reason. If there's an alert that wouldn't come through just because of timing, it comes through on those the NOAA radios. I really like this Midland that I have a picture of in there. That's the one I keep in the truck because it does a hand crank. There's also rechargeable batteries. It's so I keep it charged all the time when it's in the truck. I found Midland's website has a great tool to be able to pull up different radios and see. They're my favorite brand. This is actually also a Midland, so we have walkie-talkies that we use, particularly when we're out and about, but these could come in really handy as well. And I just saw a big Facebook ad for walkie-talkies that are kind of like walkie-talkies on steroids, where people are using them to communicate with their family members in other states. So those exist. I don't know the details on them, so I can't speak to those, but definitely something I'm going to add to my research list. Check-in locations would be the other piece. I think that's another one that gets overlooked. Having a spot that's designated so everybody knows if something happens, then this is where we're going to meet up, and don't leave that space until we've all met up. And reviewing that, especially with kids, having a standing meeting where you review your emergency procedures. Hopefully you never have to use them, but better to be safe than sorry. And then again, the community networks, just establishing a group of trusted people that you can band together if needed, but also having updates. That's another reason for the radios as well. If it were to be like a nuclear event where you have to shelter in place, you don't want to leave that space until you've heard the okay from the officials. So the radios are really important for that as well. I feel very doomsday-ish right now. I don't mean to be. Shelter and evacuation strategies. So sometimes it's hard to know when do I go, when do I stay. I personally think you stay as long as possible if you can, because you have shelter. If you have shelter, if your house is gone, then maybe not. But I find sheltering in place would be my top That's my top goal, but also being prepared to exit. So you should have multiple evacuation strategies from both home, from work, from schools. Know your plans ahead of time and don't rely on Google. Like, memorize those things. This day and age, a lot of us are rather dependent on our GPS. So knowing where you're going, I keep a map in my truck also, a road map. You never know. And also know the locations of public shelters and community services and gathering points. Just about every big city and even smaller towns have emergency preparedness managers. So they have all of this stuff in place already. They have emergency plans. So if there's a catastrophic event, this place will be open for this place will be open for that. So you can get that information from them. Highly recommend doing that. And then shelter in place best practices, if, like I said, if heaven forbid there was a nuclear event, the things that you want to have on hand are plastic sheeting and duct tape. And you choose a room on the interior of your home, if at all possible, with no exterior doors or windows. I don't know how many of your rooms have no windows. There's none in my house. But you'd want the smallest one, and you seal everything off. You seal off the door, you seal off the window, you seal off the vents if you have central air, and seal it all off, and you just stay in your spot. So whatever room you would use for that, you want some of your emergency supplies close to that. I have seen where people will cut plastic to fit the doors or the windows ahead of time. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, just because something could change and you might have to be in a different room. And if you've already cut those, then they may not fit for the other, if you have to change at the last minute. Whereas if you have the roll of the sheeting, it doesn't matter. So just a little, keep duct tape everywhere. Duct tape's handy. And then some everyday resilience habits. It can be tempting to go out and buy a whole bunch of tools and supplies. It's probably not financially feasible for a lot of us to go out and do that. So the way I've handled it is I buy a little bit each month. So every Costco trip I do, I buy something extra to put, to stash away, or it's more life straws, because like I said, there's a million of us. So I need about 1 million life straws for everybody to use to filter the water. Or I do freeze drying. That's some of the ways I prep food for the family. So I will buy a little extra produce when I'm shopping and then freeze dry it and stash it, because freeze drying, the food can stay good for 25 years if it's packaged correctly. So just doing a little bit at a time. And then situational awareness, knowing what's happening around you. Like I said, in Olympia, we sometimes have protests. So that's something that you wouldn't necessarily have in Colville. So knowing what's typical for your area, what's happening in your area, I think it's important to know what's happening politically also, even though that can be hard too. Security measures, home safety, and personal safety. For home, I always think about protecting my family, just because I'm a rather small person and I worry about, again, I'll be prepared for quite a lot. We're scrappy people. I've got things stored. I've got emergency kits, but I don't know that that's going to be true of all my neighbors. So I think about things like secure locks for your doors. Don't rely just on a doorknob, rely on have a good deadbolt. And then, again, that's kind of your situational and awareness then too, keeping track of what's happening outside your door. And then personal safety, we keep bear spray with us. And then I often carry, depending on the situation. So there's multiple things. In the last session, I said you can always use anything as a weapon. We use a golf club. So it's just anything can work. But don't be afraid to use it. And then community concerns, identify allies in your building, neighborhoods. I say that a lot. I feel strongly about that one. an action plan. So creating personal and family preparedness plan. So this is where you put together all your emergency contacts, meeting points, supply checklist. Oh, and I have a bunch of bags, and you guys are welcome to help yourself. A nonprofit that I have worked with in the past, they actually just had to close their doors due to lack of funding. But they had these bags with a great emergency checklist. So you guys are welcome to have those. And there's even a little pad of paper in there and a glow stick. So help yourself, take as many as you want. Because I certainly don't want to take them home with me. And if nothing else, there's a million glow sticks, which are handy for anything. So this is a great starting point. There's a million lists online, but this is a good starting one. And again, reviewing all of that information with your family. So reviewing your meeting points, reviewing your emergency contacts, what we're going to do in this situation, what we're going to do in that situation. Just keeping everybody on the same page. So that something does happen, it's muscle memory, and you're not like, oh my gosh, what did they say we were going to do? I even like practice drills, but I don't do them very often because I have some high anxiety kids. They get it honestly. Use available resources. FEMA has some great guides online on their website right now, but I do also know there's going to be some major changes to their website. There's a warning at the top. So I would grab the information from them sooner rather than later, just to make sure you have it. They've got some great infographics on how to shelter in place, whether you're in an apartment, a house, your car, at your office. Did I say that already? I'm sorry. It was a late night last night. It was a long night with the wind. Oh, it was. So I'd grab that information from them sooner rather than later. I had someone say yesterday, FEMA's a great resource for information, but don't depend on FEMA. I would absolutely agree with that. I don't plan on anybody coming in and saving us if something were to happen. It's probably not going to happen. And if it does, it's going to take a while. So you be prepared to take care of yourselves first. Ready.gov also has some great resources. They're one of my favorites, especially with they've got some great resources for kids if you've got younger kids. And then again, the local emergency management offices, get that information before something were to happen so you know where to go. Start small and stay consistent. So that's where I was talking about how I just do a little bit each month. And you just keep adding to it. Again, things I prioritize are definitely radios so that you can know what's happening without having to go out and try and find out what's happening. You can do it from the safety of your own home. First aid kit, a good first aid kit also, and knowing how to use it. I think that's it. And then these are just some more of this is almost all the same resources. So FEMA, I already mentioned, ready.gov, and then Wild Oak Trail. I stumbled across this one when I was doing some prep for this, and it has the ultimate prepper checklist, and I loved it. I bookmarked it so I could go back. They've got some great resources and ideas, and then True Prepper also does. So I would recommend both those websites and taking a look at their stuff. They both have things you can purchase, but there's a lot of information where you don't need to purchase anything. So I think those are both good ones. And then, did you get a picture of it? And then that's about it. Any questions?
How much food do you store?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know at this point how much I've got. So part of my anxiety, I am terrified of natural disasters. It's the earthquake in particular, we live right on that fault zone, terrifies me. And I've grown up in there. I grew up in the Seattle area. So I have food stashed. I sound like such a weirdo. I have food stashed down in our shop. We have like a storage shop and workshop. So I have food stashed down there and water. And then I have a deck box where I keep more food and water stashed. And then I have our stash in the garage. And then I usually keep stuff in the truck and in the Kia. So between all of it, I probably have enough. I know I have enough that we could survive a month, all of us, with no problem.
We have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our meetup location is her house. So
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We live pretty close to each other.
Yeah.
And currently I'm not in a urban situation. I just have been for most of my life. Right now I live on 5 acres, so I do have room to stash in all these multiple places. And worst case scenario, we have an in-ground pool. So I'm like, okay, worst case scenario, because again, water is my weakness. I don't have enough water for that long. But worst case scenario, that pool has a lot of water that I can do something with. It would take some massive filtration and boiling and things like that, but we could do it. I've got all the tools to do it. And I think camping helps a lot too. My bug out bag is our pop-up trailer. I actually have food stored in there too. But it has everything. It has tents, it has tarps, it has a Dutch oven to cook on, it has propane, right? It has all the things that could be a traveling emergency shelter. So
we just live in a duplex, so all of our stuff is in labeled totes, and all we have to do is go in the garage, throw them in the Jeep, and go.
Yep.
I think some of the biggest things we're going to experience misery. It will just be miserable.
Yeah.
Is if we lose our utilities. My work was part of the largest gas line break a year ago, November, so a year now.
Right.
In the U.S. history.
Right.
So it took about 36 to 40,000 people out of natural gas.
Oh my gosh.
November.
Yeah.
And it took them more than a week to get everyone up online.
Yeah.
So that's how do you keep your house from freezing in November?
Absolutely.
How do you keep warm? How do you cook? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
My business, there were multiple businesses that were closed for 3 and 4 days. Restaurants, catastrophic events for restaurants. They did not have a way to keep their food cold.
Right. And they lose it all.
Food and maybe not cold with natural gas. But then my son was part of the power outage in northern Michigan. If you saw it on the news,
I did.
You should have seen something on the news if you watch news.
Mm-hmm.
He was without power for 21 days.
Mm-hmm.
That takes everything from your refrigerator away. And he is on propane furnace, so he had no heat because you can't get the electric, no blower.
Yep.
Thankfully, it was the end of April and we were end of March, and it was April and days were getting warmer, so he didn't end up with frozen pipes. But
right.
That would have happened.
Absolutely. If it'd been earlier. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's why we ripped out, this fall, we have propane fireplaces and we have a heat pump, but we ripped out the propane fireplaces and put in a wood stove for that very reason. It's the first house I've ever lived in that didn't have wood heat. And it's one of the things I prioritize typically. This house was a fluke thing. It's a long story, but no, and a lot of people don't know.
No, but this is not like people coming after you with a gun. This is just, you don't have your utilities for a while.
Absolutely.
A long while.
A long while. Well, and how do you, again, that's part of the reason we went out to the wood stove, because we can cook. We can be, absolutely, right? And we have a generator for our house also. But again, it's something that's cost prohibitive for most people. And it was in for us when we bought the house. So it wasn't something I had to do. Because we're on a well. So for us, if we have a major power outage, if we don't have the generator, we don't have water. So we don't. And that's one of the things that's on Andy's list to do. I don't like plumbing. It's not my thing.
I love plumbing.
Yeah, yes, I do, but I don't want to work on it. So, but no, we saw the guy with the hand pumps here last year, and it's on the list of things to do. And again, right, I do have the backups of the pool and we have a stream behind on our property. I mean, we've got some options, but yeah, no, the hand pump would be, because I also have, not only do we have the 6 kids at the house every other weekend, and then Andy and I, but we also have my 84-year-old mother. So I've got this range of people to have to take care of.
The stove was a priority for us too.
It was, I didn't realize that I will say I did not realize how easy it really was to have it done. I mean, it's not cheap by any means, but it also was not as cost prohibitive as I thought it would be. And Andy did a lot of the work himself.
Then are you heating with wood primarily? And
Yes.
where do you get your wood?
So my Buy Nothing group has been fantastic. So I don't know if you guys know about Buy Nothing groups.
I understand the concept.
So I'm in a Buy Nothing group, and they, I had somebody post, we have this huge log that we thought we were going to do something with. We've never done anything. It's sitting here. It's been here for 3 years. I give up. Will somebody take it? And so I said to Andy, look at this. We want it, right? And he said, yeah. So we went over, and it took us days. It was
Huge.
so you see the picture, you think, yeah, that's a big log. The rounds were this high. They were massive. So we had to take, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I know, it feels terrible, but I got free firewood because at the beginning of this, when we first had the wood stove installed, we didn't have firewood, and so we had to buy it, and I just wanted to throw up. It was like, it's so expensive to get.
Can you imagine, I'm on this side and I pay $250 to $300 a cord now.
Yeah, it was
Since the
300.
pandemic.
Yeah, we paid $300 a cord and got 2 cords and went through it. We used it all. Yeah, oh, I'm sure. So now,
Over here.
yeah, I believe it. But that was our main set. The house was 80 degrees most of the winter. It feels so good. It feels so good. So the wood heat is great. And then we have the diesel heater for the tents for when we're overlanding. So that's another way that we can heat. If we needed to heat a room, we just pipe in the one spot and have the diesel heater on the outside. Again, the camping helps a lot. We have a million things that we use for camping that you just think out, oh, I can cook on the propane stove right outside the door. I wouldn't use a propane stove in the house personally, but if it was well vented, it would be okay. But yeah, just thinking outside the box, I think is the biggest thing when you have that limited space in an urban kind of space. That's what we did.
I would also recommend make sure you're using what you own.
Yes.
Like we had the power go out New Year's Eve this year. And they said it's going to take 4 hours. So, okay, sun gets dark at 4 in December.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like 4 hours. Okay, so it'll be on probably before we go to bed. But I got home at 3 that day, and it's like, okay, honey, we have an hour. And so we need to get all the light.
Yes.
Because we were already heating with wood, so that was fine. We were going to cook on the wood stove.
Not a big deal. Yeah.
Not a big deal. Water. I have a pitcher pump outside. So everything. But it was like light. Light was going to be my. So I got my lanterns out. The kerosene evaporates out of your lanterns.
It does.
And so
yes.
they were low, but
yep.
not enough. So I was able to use them in my globes. I burned wood. So I have ash fall out. And so they were dusty. And of course, I didn't have running water.
Right, to clean them. Yep.
So you should get these things out. And I also have an Aladdin lamp, which is the round wick versus
yes.
Those are extremely hard to light and operate.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
4-year-olds, 5-year-olds could do them back in 1930, 40.
Right.
That was rural America's lighting still. Many
right.
places power had not come to my street where I live now in the 40s yet.
Right.
And so it was commonplace and everybody knew how to do it. But there's a big trick to them. They have a 20-minute warming time.
Oh my goodness.
Before they give out the equivalent of like a 40-watt light bulb.
Right.
So they do give way more light.
Right.
Probably 10 times as much as a straight wick kerosene lamp.
Wow.
But I'm not practicing enough. I know with my own Aladdin.
Right.
It took me like between 10 and 20 hours of practicing with it before I could get it lit without smoking out my house.
Yeah.
So I would recommend if you have things, make sure you get them out and use them. The solar stuff has to be in the sun every once in a while.
Yep, absolutely.
Stuff has to have batteries.
Yeah, we have charging stations for a lot of our stuff. Right. Yes, make sure that's a great. Well, it's just like the generator. We pull it out even in the summer, once each summer too, and fire it up just to make sure things are still moving along. Yes.
Fire your generators.
Mhm.
Make sure you can start them once,
Oh,
at least twice a
Cycle
year,
the
but
flows
once
in
a
your go
quarter
bag.
would
Yeah.
be a good idea.
Just cycle the flows in your go bag. So
Yep, exactly. Well, and cycling your food too. That's the other one. You want to make sure and cycle that out. It's why I've been shifting more to freeze dried things because they'll last so much longer than other things. So, and it's lighter, right? When I have this huge tote of canned goods, I can't lift it, but I can carry a huge tote of freeze dried goods. So,
What kind of freezer do you have?
I got the Harvest Right. It's just the small one. I will be upgrading because I love it.
Will you keep two or will you sell your small?
I'm
hoping I'll get it.
I've had a couple. I've had people already say I'll buy. Like Craig said he'd buy it too, but I kind of want to keep it because I can crank out so much at once. And I've been really happy with the Harvest Right. Really
My
happy.
stuff to you.
You can.
I would caution getting the extra large. You might have enough family members, but I have a large. My sister-in-law has an extra large, and she's finding it extremely hard to get filled. 'Cause it
Oh,
is
I'm sure.
big, and
Yeah.
You are not going to run it with one tray. Or
No.
just two trays.
No, because it uses.
It's expensive.
Yeah, it is. No. Yeah, you want it full.
Okay.
It sucks a lot of power.
Yeah, it does.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's noticeable on your power bill.
Hmm.
Why is the power bill? Oh yeah, we did a few trips.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah. It absolutely is. No, I was leaning towards the large. So now that you said that, thank you. I'll stick with the large.
The large, it's fine.
Hmm.
I would recommend the large, but I would not recommend.
No, that's good to know.
The size of it and the trays are. I don't think the trays would fit in my upright freezer either.
Right. Well, and that's part of it. Because one of the tricks is to freeze things before you put them in. If you freeze them first, it cuts down the time a lot. So that's one of my cheats is I'll buy frozen vegetables at like the peas and carrots. I'll buy those when I'm shopping and then just put them on the freeze dryer trays and pop them in right then. And then they're already frozen. It goes fast and it's a total cheat, but it takes no prep, which for me is very big because I work about 1 million hours, as you know. And then the kids.
Family to come home to.
Exactly. All the kids and all the activities. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Of course, my pleasure. It's my pleasure.